Hi folks. So today I thought we'd look at some short stories. So this is an anthology that I read recently. It's an Andromeda edited by Peter Weston. It was published in 1970 something, I'll tell you. 76. And all 10 stories in here were commissions, especially for this book. So this is the first anthology that I've read for a long time, decades and decades. I used to read quite a lot, principally Isaac Asimov's short stories, but others too. I did dip into a big fat anthology, one of the mammoth book of best science fiction of the year, but I only read 2 or 3. So I waded through this one in pretty short order. It's not a thick book. So as I say, it's the first one that I've read for ages, and I enjoyed it. It's like a tapas menu. A little bit of everything is served in tasty, thought-provoking, bite-sized portions. I'm really looking forward to gradually munching my way through the rest of the anthologies on my shelf. So I'm going to go through the stories that are in this anthology one by one, just very briefly, in reverse order. So at number 10, the story that I enjoyed the least is Appearance of Life by Brian Aldiss. So this is set in a far future. Humanity has evolved, and we're using a long abandoned alien construction that spans the circumference at the equator of a planet somewhere. So it's a huge construction, nothing in it, empty volume, and we're using it as a museum. This alien construct has enough volume inside it to allow the display of entire starships as museum pieces. It's enormous. And the protagonist in the story is doing some research in the museum, and he finds 2 quite mundane things, 2 message devices, finds them in different places. And these message devices are restricted so that they'll only play to the intended recipient. So it's coded to the intended recipient of the message. As luck would have it, each message was intended for the sender of the other message. So he kind of sets these 2 devices up next to each other, and they kind of talk to each other, or give the appearance of talking to each other. But the messages, unfortunately, are separated by a span of time during which their relationship has broken down. So these messages were between lovers. The protagonist of the story sort of spends a bit of time musing on the nature of communication. The thing I liked the best about this story was the scale of the museum concept. It was enormous. Overall, though, I thought that this one was a bit whimsical for me. Nothing much happened, really, so hence it's bringing up the rear. Number 9 is Valley of the Bushes by Naomi Mitchison. So this is a really short story. It's just 5 pages, just a tad over. And in this story, the bushes of the title are special plants that can extract rare earth metals from the ground, in useful quantities. And so the valley in which they grow is isolated, and the people there are sort of thriving on the trade of metals that they take over the mountains in exchange for other goods that they can use in the village. Word has gotten out, though, to a scientist in the outside world. This chap is desperate to recover his damaged reputation, so he flies into this valley by helicopter. They barely know that helicopters exist in this valley, so it's all a bit of a surprise. What he ideally wants is a sample of a bush that he can take away. And after some negotiations and some trying out of languages, during a celebratory meal on the evening of his arrival, he's promised a grand tour of the valley the next day. The people of the valley, though, have other ideas, and let's just say that the scientist need no longer worry about his reputation. I think what I liked about this one is that Mitchison manages to pack quite a lot into just a few pages. It's quite an art, I think, explaining enough about the background, getting to the nub of the story, and delivering a punchline in that few pages is quite something, I think. So number 8 is Starthinker 9 by Michael G. Coney. So this is a short love story with a sting in the tail, or so it's described by the editor in the introduction to the story. The story revolves around a Starthinker. So this is somebody, a human, that can communicate across interstellar distances just through the power of their mind. Extraordinarily rare, and she's the only one on Earth that can do this. So obviously her talents are in demand. The protagonist of the story is a mere world thinker. Has the same kind of basic powers, but over a much smaller scale, sort of a planetary scale. Received messages from this star thinker responsible for communicating them on to people around the planet. And they've been communicating and developing a bit of a relationship, and they've fallen in love. And the protagonist, the planetary world thinker, then packs his bags and travels the 70 light years to visit Starthinker 9. So the story opens with the World Thinker walking through the Scottish countryside towards a cottage where Starthinker 9 lives, where she's, or more accurately, where she's kept or looked after. She's effectively a prisoner in this house. So valuable are her abilities. And as our protagonist gets closer, the Starthinker gets more and more agitated and excited, which in turn causes the people guarding her to get more and more sort of defensive. They're worried that something bad might happen to her. They're not sure what the motivations of the visitor are. So the meet doesn't quite happen because the guards are so exercised about all this. While our protagonist is being escorted away by a guard, the big reveal promised in the editor's introduction happens. And I thought, what, is that it? But I suppose in mid 1970s Britain it would have been a bigger deal, but it was quite underwhelming by today's standards. Number 7 is a story called Seeing by Harlan Ellison. So this is a short story that's peppered with creative names for objects. There are fox martins, stern gangs, and something called a Knox shop. And we follow in the story 2 shady characters, prongers. That's their occupation. They're prongers, and their job is to source organs from living hosts for transplanting into unscrupulous wealthy clients. And in this case, in this story, they're searching for a woman with a particular set of eyes that are desired or demanded even by a sinister old woman who's some kind of mafia or gangland figure and enormously wealthy. The woman with the eyes is apparently a prostitute that services alien clients, but dreams of making a new life off planet, a bargain that she ultimately strikes when the prongers catch her and bring her to the surgery unit where the transplant will take place. So the operation happens, but the rich gangster kind of gets more than she bargained for when the eyes that have been transplanted into her turn out to have special properties which weren't revealed previously, and that she was not prepared to handle them, and essentially she goes insane pretty much immediately. I enjoyed the description of the seedy world inhabited by these people, and kind of totally sympathised with the eye woman's desire to escape, even before I knew what she was living with as the owner of the eyes. It also had a kind of tone of sort of Philip K. Dick to it. I felt, I've not read any Harlan Ellison before, so I don't know if that's kind of just the way he rolls or if he was doing some kind of tribute to Philip K. Dick. I don't know. So number 6 was Travellers by Robert Holstock. So this is another love story, and he was a bit of time travel thrown in. The protagonist is travelling through time, searching for a woman, a fellow time traveller from a different millennium that he met and fell in love with on a previous time travel trip. So she's from, if I remember rightly, she's from the 4th millennium, he's from the 3rd, and their paths have crossed and they've had an assignation. The time travel process is a little bit unpredictable, so these time travel nodes aren't always there. They appear, and it's tightly controlled, so there's some subterfuge involved in his travel plans. To cut a short story short, he eventually meets her and they have a passionate reunion, but wait, there's a twist. She is fleeing the time police for some time travel breaking of the time travel rules, and so they can't spend long together. And then to boot, it transpires that she is not who that he thought she was, and she's actually a rather direct descendant of his first meeting, which is a bit awkward. At number 5 is An Infinite Summer by Christopher Priest. So in his gentle fashion, Priest tells a beguiling tale with this one. So a courting couple, at the beginning of the story, a courting couple are minding their own business in the late 1800s, having a very prim and proper walk by the river, and they've just kind of ventured to holding hands and essentially declaring their undying love for each other and agreeing to marry. And then they are suddenly separated by a time anomaly. Something happens, they're whiz bang, they're separated. And the protagonist, the guy, is flipped forward into the future, and we gather, spends 5 years in the late 1930s, winding up in 1940 during the Blitz. That's where we catch up with him, and he's been homeless and penniless in London for that time, for that 5 years, and he's equal parts fascinated and tormented by tableau. They're kind of little scenes that seemingly only he can see, where people are frozen in a moment in time. So this time anomaly is clear that separated him and his fiancée are not unique. And one of those tableaux is by the Thames at Richmond, where they were walking, and it transpires that this one is of his fiancée, hand outreached at the point where they were separated. So while he's been flung forward decades into the future, she's been frozen, kind of trapped between dimensions or something, kind of neither here nor there. And in an air raid, a German bomber shot down and crash lands nearby. So will she be destroyed in the process is the big question. And the story ends soon after that, and I'll leave it for you to find out what happens next. I enjoyed reading some more Priest. It's a timely reminder that I need to read another of his novels. I also enjoyed the fact that much of the story is set by the Thames at Richmond, which is very close to where I work, and I've spent quite a lot of time walking and running along that bit of river. Number 4 is Doll by Terry Greenhalgh. This was an unsettling tale. In some far future dying Earth scenario, humanity is in decline as it struggles to successfully reproduce. Each village has a doll maker, a strange sort of midwife who is somehow, it's not explained how, able to imprint a human consciousness onto a doll as a doll. Each doll starts as a template made of a strange living material. I don't think he describes what it is. I sort of imagined it to be fungal, but they can be moulded by the doll maker into the shape of a baby. And in the story, a baby is born but soon deteriorates, and it's a race against time for the doll maker to mould a suitable doll and get it to take. I was left thinking, what happens if the doll maker succeeds? Does that doll baby grow and then become human? Can it reproduce? And what I really thought or wondered, is this a slow motion alien invasion, a kind of body snatcher tale? Greenhalgh does a good job conveying the hopelessness and desperation of the situation, which reminded me a little bit of Children of Men by P.D. James. At number 3 is A Beast for Norn by George R.R. Martin. The enigmatic and seemingly scruple-free protagonist in this story is an ecologist of sorts. His starship contains the DNA for all manner of beasts from around the universe, and he's able to quickly develop the DNA into a fully grown animal. He travels to the planet Norn, where he becomes a dealer, effectively an arms dealer, to the gladiatorial games which seem to drive the politics on Norn. In this long-running contest, each powerful player tries to get the edge over their opponents by breeding a new kind of killer beast that can prevail in the pits. Family fortunes are won and lost, influence gained. Now dealer supplies a winning beast to one such player, and then another, and so on, each more powerful than the last. So it becomes a classic arms race, and I think Martin nails the ending of this story. I really enjoyed it. At number 2 is The Giant Killers by Andrew M. Stevenson. In what seems to be a near future, maybe 50 or 70 years in the future, biomachines have run amok and humans are on the run and hiding underground. And we follow in this story a small group of 3 soldiers in Africa. Their mission is to track and capture a damaged biomechanical tank and to retrieve its brain so that it can be examined by the boffins back at base. This is not Africa as we know it. Even the animals have been close to wiped out by the biomachines. The 3 soldiers stalk the tank, but they sustain losses along the way due to an array of said bioweapons. Tachymat, scarabs and gremlins are among the names given to the weapons. I really enjoyed the evocative descriptions in this story. It reminded me a lot of Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy. It's a familiar landscape, but things are just a little bit off. My favourite one in this book was Walts of the Body Snatchers by Bob Shaw. In this story, there's a love triangle with a difference. The punishment for murder in this world is that the consciousness of the victim is transferred into the body of the murderer, replacing them effectively, allowing the murdered to live on at the expense of the perpetrator. This society is also tightly run, and there are taboos surrounding infidelity and other improper behaviour. Divorce is unheard of. 2 lovers conspire to off the husband so that they may continue their affair without risking ruin. And from that premise there then ensues a tangled plot involving other parties, body transfers, with a neat and tidy outcome in which everyone gets what they want. And that seems like it will work, but Shaw has the last laugh, revealing an even more convoluted and ultimately successful plot underlying the first. There are double and even triple crosses, and the beneficiaries are not who I assumed would end up winning out. It was clever stuff. So as I say, that's my first whip round an anthology for quite a long time, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into the others that I have on my shelves. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, goodbye for now.